In this video, we're going to cover everything you need to know when you turn up for your NPTC tree felling up to 380mm assessment. So what to expect the day of your tree felling assessment then. So the first thing you're going to do, you're going to have a meet and greet with the assessor that turns up, okay? And don't forget your assessor's there to calm any nerves that you have made built up prior to getting to this point, okay? This assessment is theory based and it's going to be practical based as well. You're going to learn all this in your training prior to you even getting to this day. Okay, but along the day, even when you do your practical elements of the assessment, you'll be asked questions throughout the day itself. So let's go and have a look at some kit that you're going to require to carry out this assessment. Some of the kit you're going to be required to carry out this assessment then. The first thing is making sure you got an adequate chainsaw, and for this assessment we're going to be using the MS261. okay, it's recommended having a guide bar up to 15 inch. With the 261, okay, the guide bars up to 16 inch, it shouldn't really be a problem for your assessment. Okay, so for obviously the chainsaw, you're going to need some fuel. Okay, so make sure you bring some fuel for the assessment itself. Okay, and you're going to need some aids to assist you carrying out some tree felling. Okay, so here we're going to have a felling lever, and this is obviously to help with obviously lifting timber itself and turning. All that again will be taught on your training. Some lifting aids, so we've got some timber tongs, maybe a wedge or a mallet to assist also, and something to measure out some of the timber. And for this we're going to use a measuring tape. Again, on your training you'll be taught other ways how you can measure some timber out, other methods, and don't forget to make sure that you bring your own personal first aid kit as well. Okay, PPE required then for this assessment. You're going to make sure you got a helmet, okay, suitable ear protection, a visor, okay, so face protection and eye protection, suitable gloves to carry out the task itself. You're going to need some chainsaw protected trousers, okay, and also some chainsaw protected boots. And this is the minimum kit really for you to carry out your tree felling up to 380mm. So the first part of this assessment then, you'll be expected to answer a load of theory questions. These questions are going to be around the safety aspects of tree felling itself. So you'll be expected to answer things that you have put on your risk assessment, talk about emergency planning, talk about safe procedures when felling trees itself, the legal factors, and then from that point onwards, once the assessor's happy with the answers that you gave them, you're going to move then on to the different types of felling techniques that you can complete to fell trees. So the first lot of these are going to be talking about trees up to 200mm itself. So you'll be expected to answer questions like your step cuts, your double V cuts, or your 80% front cuts, etc. And don't forget, all these are going to be covered on your training before you've even got to this point itself. Okay, so once the assessor is happy with these, they will then move on to different types of felling techniques that you may have to complete up to the diameter of 380mm in the tree size. Okay, and these cuts are going to be your basic cuts, your dogtooth, your Danish, and your split level cutting techniques. Okay, so let's go and have a look and see what they are. So going into the practical part of this assessment then, okay, at this stage we'd have to demonstrate again carrying out some safe starts with the chainsaw itself, so prepping your chainsaw ready to carry out the cuts, okay, and then you'll be going over to the tree and carry out your visual tree assessment. Okay, to carry out your visual tree assessment and to prep your tree itself. Okay, so once you've picked it, you'll be walking around the tree itself, looking at the ground conditions, looking at the basal area of the tree itself. And when you're carrying out your VTA, just start from the ground level and you're working your way up around, and you're looking for things like flaking bark, any dead wood that potentially could fall out the tree itself, and also any wildlife that may be in the tree itself. And don't forget, all this is going to be covered on the training before you even get to this day itself. Okay, so once you're happy with the VTA itself, you'll then go into checking the felling direction. So looking at the natural leaning of the tree itself and which way you're going to fell the tree. Okay, looking at this one here. Okay, we're going to go straight down there. Yeah, happy with that there. Okay, so from there, once you're happy with your felling direction, you'll then go and check your escape routes. Okay, so from there, back of the tree, looking at my escape routes that way and my escape routes that way. So I'm just going to need to clear some of the little area here, just in case I need to get out in that direction there. Okay, so that's carrying out your VTA and checking your escape routes. At this stage then, you can then discuss with the assessor on what type of fell or felling technique that you're going to demonstrate on this tree here. Okay, and for this part of the assessment, okay, so the practical part of it, you need to demonstrate 2 different types of felling techniques. Okay, and one of those trees also need to get hung up, so you can then demonstrate to your assessor how to get a hung up tree down safely. Okay, so let's go into that now. So once you've carried out your visual tree assessment, okay, you'll then look at the tree that you're going to be felling. Okay, you're going to be picking your directional fell, okay, and the felling technique that you're going to demonstrate to the assessor itself. Okay, and I've had a look at this one. It's got a slight little lean forward there, so I'm going to demonstrate a basic felling technique on this one here. Okay, don't forget, on the day you will be expected, okay, to pick your own felling technique down to the tree that you are felling itself. Okay, and all this is going to be covered on your training before you even get to this point. So once you've got your tree down, you'll then discuss with the assessor what the next process is, okay? And from here, you'll need to go into the depth of clearing the stem, so branch removal, and obviously depending on what tree species it is, will depend on how that works, okay? So on this site here, okay, we need to remove all the branches on the stem itself, okay, and the site specification for this site is 2 meter lengths. So this is all going to come down to your site specification on the day. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate removing all the branches and then doing some cross-cutting techniques at 2 meter lengths, and then we're going to the stacking process there. Okay, let's do it. Okay then, so once you process all the timber to site specification, you'll then have to deal with the horizons itself, and depending on your site specifications will depend on where you go from this point. On the site that we're on now, we cut the timbers at 2 meter lengths as specified, okay, and the brash is just staying where it is, so we don't have to deal with anything like that. Okay, so the forester wants these stacked up in poles, no higher than 1 meter high, so that's what I'm going to go into now. And to aid me into this, I'm going to use my sort of lifting tongs, because some of these look a little bit heavy. Okay, let's go and do that. Okay then, so once you've stacked numerous bits of the timber itself, if you do have any bits of timber that is too heavy for you to handle, don't be afraid at this stage to ask the assessor just to assist you and help you get it onto the pile itself, just like I'm going to need on this one over here. Okay then, so on this tree here, okay, we just did our VTA, and what we're going to do on this tree is we're going to deliberately get it hung up into a different tree, and this is part of your assessment. So as part of your assessment, you have to deliberately try and get a hung up tree, okay, so you can then show your assessor how to get that hung up tree down safely. Okay, so once the tree's hung up, Okay, the best thing to do is get out into your escape routes, into your safe zone area. At that point, switch off your saw, and then the assessor is going to ask you some questions about hung up tree procedures. Okay, and you'll be expected to list all safety precautions around hung up trees. Okay, then once you've answered these questions, you'll go into how to get down a hung up tree itself. Okay, and the two methods of getting this down is a hinge reduction and a rollout technique using your felling lever. Okay, and if that's not successful, what you could then move into is a complete hinge removal, okay, and a walkout technique. And that's why I've been carrying that extra bit length of timber there, just in case I had any of my trees hung up today on this assessment. So let's see how this is going to work. Let's go for it. Okay, so now we've got the tree hung up. What we're going to do now is go straight into dealing with the hung up tree. Okay, again, the assessor is going to ask you some questions regarding the hung up tree itself, and you'll be expected to answer all these questions. Okay, and looking at this tree and the way it's hung up, then just get the felling lever out of the way. Okay, so with this one, I'm going to do a hinge removal. Okay, and we're going to try and roll it this way. Okay, so I need to be on the other side. So grab all my tools that I need. You grab your footings. Keep an eye on the tree at all times. Okay, so let's see how we get on. Okay, on this occasion, the hinge reduction and rollout technique hasn't worked in my favour. Okay, so from this point onwards, what I can go into is a complete hinge removal and using my walkout stick, try and drag the tree back to get the hung up tree down. Let's see how we get on. And that is how we get a hung up tree down. Okay then, so a quick VTA done on this tree here. Okay, and I've decided on this one that we're going to demonstrate the Danish technique or the safe corner hold. Okay, so we picked the direction itself and I'm happy that we are going to go with just down the side of these other trees here. Okay, and don't forget, on the day of your assessment, it'll be yourself who's going to pick your felling technique depending on the tree that you'll be felling on the day. Okay, so let's see how that's going to happen then. Okay then, for this tree then, I've had a look around, I've carried out my sort of VTA to it, I've got my escape routes in place, and I've decided, because this tree is slightly leaning backwards, okay, and I want it to go in that direction, I'm going to demonstrate a split level cut on this tree. Okay, again, you as a candidate would be expected to make sure that you pick your cuts suited to the actual tree that you're going to be felling. Okay, so let's go into that. We hope this video's helped. This is just a little insight what to expect when you turn up for your tree felling up to 380mm assessment. Okay, you're going to get plenty of training before you even get to this date. The NPTC guides used for this assessment will be linked in the description below. Okay, so we hope you liked the video, and we'll see you in the next one.